town issues specifically, and we want to keep it that way. There'll be another forum in October that will be held, I believe, at TA. That'll be announced later, and that will be for all of Saco and all questions Saco at that point. So with that started or said, what we're going to do is have the candidates introduce themselves very briefly, and then we are going to start a very equal process of picking who starts first. We're going to have a little lottery, who gets to pick the first question, and then we're going to pick, we have 5 questions. Everybody's going to be asked 2 questions tonight, and then they're going to have a 3-minute period to rebut, to answer a question maybe they didn't get asked they'd like to talk about, or just make a platform statement. At that point, we're going to open it to the public, and we'd love to have you ask questions, but we'd like to, again, remember to keep it on global topics specifically revolving around our downtown, such as, let's say, we won't ask things like, what are you going to do about the neighbor who's got a dog that barks all the time, or something like that. So we'll keep it on the bigger issues, and we don't want to talk about Camp Ellis tonight, or the school district, or anything like that. We're going to keep it on downtown issues, if you'd oblige us with that. So to start, I guess we'll start at one end and just work your way down, if you name, rank, serial number, etc. But again, we're going to keep it succinct if we could.
Greetings. Is this on? Perfect. My name is Marshall Archer. I live at 1 Waycott Way. I'm running for Ward 1 Councillor. By profession right now, I'm a doctoral student in social work, working on administrative and government practice. I am the commander of the AMVETS over in Biddeford, and I work with people with developmental disabilities, getting them jobs and assessments.
Hi, Barbara Coleman, running for Ward 3. I am a half-time administrative assistant for my brother's company in another organization. I work with individuals also with developmental disabilities and their caretakers, and I'm helping to operate their homes and various things throughout the community.
Greetings all. Bill Doyle. I'm your current city councilor for Ward 3, running for re-election. This is my first time running for re-election. My profession is a labor representative for correctional employees. Prior to that, I was a corrections officer, and prior to that, a police officer. So with that, I'll pass it on.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Copeland, and I'm running for Ward 4 seat on the Saco City Council. I'm a therapeutic foster parent and chair of the Saco Conservation Commission.
Hi, my name is Mike Berman. I'm running for City Council in Ward 4. It's my second time running. I'm a tenured professor at the University of New England, where I teach, run a federally funded research lab, and serve on the faculty senate, including the finance committee. I'm also the parent representative on the school district strategic planning committee. Happy to be here.
Hi, Al Minthorn. I'm the current Ward 5 city councilor, and I'm running unopposed, as well as our Ward 2, Roger Gay, who's not here tonight, is also unopposed, as well as Nathan Johnson, Ward 7, who's also unopposed and unable to be here tonight.
Hello, Jason Boucher, Ward 6. I live over at 15 North Street. First time getting involved with city government, and I'm here hoping to make some positive changes for the downtown area because I see a lot of areas in which improvement could be made, and a lot of things that I personally would like to see as a resident that was born and raised here in Saco.
I'm Ted Soroy, and I'm a retired Navy chief. I currently work now at Texas Instruments as an equipment technician. I graduated from Thornton Academy in '72. I also got an associate's from University of Maine in Machias, and a bachelor's in technical education from USM, and then a master's in adult education from USM. And anyways, I've just got done 2 years on the school board, and now I'd like to have a chance of being able to help things out on the city side by becoming a city councilor. Thank you.
My name is Micah Smart. I'm also running for City Council from Ward 6. I am an attorney up in Portland at Eaton Peabody. recent grad of Maine Law, and I've been the treasurer of the Maine Association for Public Interest Law, been involved in student politics, and I'm hoping to make a difference here in Saco.
Good evening. My name is Marston Lovell. I'm a candidate for mayor of Saco. I've been on the city council, having served 3 terms on the city council, representing the ward that City Hall is in. Certainly part of the downtown district. I'm currently a county commissioner, and that will end if I get elected mayor. And I'm a retired Army Reserve major, and I had owned a computer business that supported the computing for businesses focused primarily in York County.
Thank you. I'm Don Pilon. I live at 1 Meadow Lane in Saco with my wife, and I'm a former mayor. I was mayor from 2013 to 2015. Prior to that, I served 4 consecutive terms in the Maine House of Representatives from 2004 to 2012. I am currently a commercial real estate broker at the Maine Real Estate Network here in Saco.
Thank you, and I did want to acknowledge that, as Alan had mentioned, there are 3 individuals that are not here tonight. One is Matthew DiCiani, who is running for councilor in Ward 1. And then we have Nathan Johnson. Unfortunately, he was planning on being here, but he hurt his back this afternoon and was unable to attend. And Roger Gay declined, and as Alan said, he is not running against anyone at this point. So with that said, what I'd like to do is have someone randomly pick one of these numbers. Could you have somebody just pick one, Peg, to decide which candidate will start the process?
Number 2.
So that would be you, Barbara. And then the first question will be whatever is chosen there as well. So 1 through 5.
Number 3.
Okay, so I'll hand it off to Peg and let her start, and I'll start with our time.
Barbara Coleman, question number 2. Saco has a significant asset in the Saco River. What are your ideas for leveraging this asset in the areas of public access, water-based business, and parks?
The Saco River Corridor Commission needs to be aware of the goals and objectives of what is being developed along the river, Saco River. Further, before any type of growth in this area is developed, the City Traffic Safety Committee has to be looked at the various areas because some of the areas that I have looked at is not wide enough for traffic as well as parking and to get emergency vehicles in. The committee includes Public Works, Fire, Police Department. This step would be helpful before actually starting any projects in development in any areas. I recognize this process does occur, and I'm providing this information for public awareness. As a response to the question, it also ties into question number 3, where a parcel of land is proposed for development. It is unique in the sense it is a great way into the city of Saco, and it includes the view of the Saco River and the mills.
Could you put the microphone closer to your mouth? Thank you.
Several boat kayak launches would benefit the public community, and I included the whole river because I did not get clarification, where parking would be established, several swimming and picnic areas for all to use and spread out along the Saco River, and areas that are accessible to all individuals, including the disabled. Trails established as educational components for our children where they can utilize science, math, language, artistic skills. And these same trails could be available to the public to use to explore the area, exercise, bird watch. The development of condos along the waterfront area would be beneficial in increasing property values, along with bringing in taxes. It would provide additional living space. A large restaurant and several small eateries and small specialty boutiques would be great and should be spread among the developed area. A marina, some linear trails along the property so that individuals can walk along what is now supposed to be called Saco Island East, and a small park with a small sitting area to relax on a beautiful sunny day in downtown Saco to watch the river. Thank you.
Thank you. William Doyle, question 4. The City of Saco has an application in with the state for a downtown development district awaiting final approval. What is your familiarity and opinion on development districts, TIFs, or tax increment financing, and BIDs, business investment districts?
Thank you very much for the question. In response, I'm familiar with this, as the city right now is in the process of, this council has approved a downtown development district, which will, when approved by the state, replace the previous downtown development district, which had expired. Downtown development districts and TIFs are interchangeable in wording, whereas business investment districts are a little different. Business investment districts allow for a surcharge to benefit that business district. So in addition to the tax rate, or whatever the tax rate is at that point, a business investment district would allow a surcharge above and beyond to formally just for that district. So that's kind of the difference, where a tax and tax improvement financing, which is what a TIF is, or a downtown development district, is more to incentivize growth and incentivize development in the downtown area. So with that, you know, this city has had a long history of doing these TIFs, or downtown development districts. And Mill Building 4 is a perfect example of that. Mill Building 4 is a product of a TIF in the formerly previous downtown development district. Since doing that, Mill Building 4 has 150 units that are all full with a waiting list for residents. It is set to have an anchor restaurant, which is much needed in this community. So these TIFs are very beneficial to increase density in the downtown. Another example of a TIF that this council was willing to accept is SIA. You know, SIA was another example where the council helped get that project off the ground. And right now, SIA is performing exceptionally in that area. And that was done through some zoning change. We had to do a zoning amendment for that. So these are the kind of things that downtown development districts and TIFs can do to incentivize business growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Copeland, number 5. What do you see as major opportunities and/or challenges for our downtown?
We have a beautiful downtown, and the historic buildings are an anchor there. I think that we could help access that with a little bit better traffic flow. And I know that there was a meeting in this room with the Maine Department of Transportation and the Bicycle Coalition of Maine regarding pedestrian safety, and we need to fine-tune our downtown with better crosswalks, more lighting, and some benches for seniors to rest. That was an issue that came up. We need to be accessible and friendly for everyone. We could use some more community spaces, and that's when I think to Saco Island East and the new construction that's going down there, perhaps an amphitheater or some kind of outdoor venue where people could perform. I think that just this past weekend I worked with some students from the University of New England, and through the Saco Conservation Commission we just painted the walls in Riverside Park, just on the other side of the train trestle, and it's all, you know, whitewashed. And I think that we could have students, maybe Thornton Academy students or some artists, come in and bring that to life and accentuate some underused parks that we have right here in the downtown. And also I think something else that's we're trying to attract millennials and have more density in our downtown. And I think Wi-Fi, having Wi-Fi available throughout the town, is a way to really, make people comfortable coming in and not feeling disconnected. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Michael Berman, question number 1. What are your views and thoughts regarding residential infill and commercial development in the downtown district?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think it's absolutely critical. I think that's one of the most important questions on the sheet. You can go to my webpage, or one of my web pages, and see my comprehensive vision for the city and how I think we could be improving it. And development downtown plays a key role in all of that. Now, you've asked about 2, residential infill and commercial development. And I think the key there is there's a synergy. It's a chicken and egg type problem. People come and move to where there are commercial services that they're attracted to and want to be around. And commercial businesses open when there's enough foot traffic and people to shop at them. So you get this cycle building where businesses come in to serve the people that are there, and people come there to take advantage of the businesses. And so the question is, how do we get on that cycle? How do we launch it and start it? And the good news is, I think we're on the right track, right? With SIA and Rugged Spruce and Chiaro and Up, and some of the businesses that have launched in the last couple years, we see a lot of momentum downtown. That the culture is starting to shift in a really positive way. The trick is how we keep up that momentum. So we just heard Bill Doyle talk a little about TIFs and business investment districts, and those are good tools to use if used cautiously. Right? There are tax implications to both of those that have risks as well as benefits. Another thing the city can do is demonstrate a comprehensive vision. If we can paint to people and businesses what it is we're looking to be, and they can see where they'd fit into that and how that future applies to them, that can attract them to come to this area. Of course, development also causes problems. Right? If we get more pedestrians coming through, we can get traffic problems, more cars, need places to park. Right? But these are things we can think about in advance as we're asking for that development and solve as we're growing slowly as opposed to waiting for it to become a crisis. As we get more development, we'll also see increasing rents, something we want to think about, right, as we're making those plans, and if we want rent controls in place or zoning to control rents in certain areas. Right? So creativity is key. Luckily, we don't need to look far. Right? Building the Biddeford-Saco area together is going to be good for Biddeford and good for Saco. They've had some creative ideas in Biddeford that have been quite successful that we can emulate. We might have some good ideas here that we can share with them. Increasing interaction will be good for both of us. But finally, when we're talking about development, development means change. We want to think about change kind of carefully. We love Saco because it's Saco. That's why I'm here. That's why you're here. So we want to keep that character. We want to keep that current culture, the current feel that we love so much, while thinking of ways to make the improvements we want to make. Right? So it's a complex mix and a difficult problem. But if you elect me, I'll help solve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just 1 second. We're not going to skip Alan intentionally, but at his request, he has asked us to keep the questions to the candidates that are running against other candidates, and then he will give a 3-minute piece at the end, and then we'll be available for public questions.
That's okay. Jason Boucher, question number 2. Saco has a significant asset in the Saco River. What are your ideas for leveraging this asset in the areas of public access, water-based business, and parks?
Well, I think that the access to the Saco River right now between residential properties along it, the train track that runs along it, and some of the infrastructure that's built along the Saco River raise a big challenge as far as trying to bring water-based businesses to the Saco River, specifically here in the downtown area. I agree with Barbara that walking trails and just providing a way in which the community members here in the downtown can get out and enjoy it and access it more easily is probably the most cost-effective way to go about introducing people to the Saco River and bringing them here. If you walk over to the Biddeford side of the river, I know that Doug Sanford has put in a little amphitheater over there that overlooks some of the cascading falls. And that's a great use of the space that he has, but unfortunately Most of the time that's closed off to just the residents that live in his buildings. Where we have mill buildings here on the Saco side, I think we can utilize space in a similar manner, but mostly looking to see the Saco River as recreational instead of business oriented. Thanks.
Thank you. Ted Siroy, question 3. The east side of Saco Island has recently changed ownership and is poised for development. As it is one of the gateways to Saco, what would be your vision for this unique parcel of land?
Well, we talk a lot about the heart of Saco, the heart of a city. I think that area there is the one that really we should focus on. Saco has a lot of historic buildings, and small businesses are moving in. Baby's Burrito, Bakery, over there on Free Street. The problem is they're scattered far away from each other. It's not really a convenient place to be able to walk around from place to place. But that area there is concentrated, and if we could make sure that we retain enough public areas so that we can have walkways, we can have gazebo, we can have places where people can gather. And also we're so proud that we have that one bridge going across over to Biddeford. If you look at that island, you can see that if you go on the backside where the fish ladders are, there should be another bridge going over there, because there's going to be a lot of people moving in on that side of Biddeford. And so that area there, I think, should receive a lot of our attention to make sure that it doesn't become completely private, and all access to people who just want to walk around and see the river, look over the fishway and things like that, that it's available to them. And so, I think this is a great piece of real estate. We're quite blessed to have that, and we should pay real good attention to it as it becomes developed, to make sure it doesn't become off limits to those of us who've lived here practically all our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Micah Smart, question 4. The City of Saco has an application in with the state for a downtown development district awaiting final approval. What is your familiarity and opinion on development districts, TIFs, or tax increment financing, and BIDs, business investment districts?
Thank you. So we heard a pretty good overview of those a second ago, but I'd like to just add a couple things about specifically the difference between TIFs and BIDs, or business investment districts. So when we're talking about TIFs, we're talking about taking incremental revenue that's gained usually by property tax increase from whatever the development is going on there, and diverting that into development in that area, as opposed to business investment districts, which actually entail an increase in either taxes or some sort of tariff on those that are within that district. So I think using the latter sparingly and very directed is a good way to go about doing that. I think anytime that you can take existing revenue without increasing tax burdens on the people who are already there, it is a good way to go about doing development. We've seen, as we've heard already, some benefits of using TIFs effectively with Mill Building 4. And I know that there's a couple that are expiring this year. There's a couple more that are expiring in the next coming years. So I think looking into continued use of those TIFs and trying to get revenue that's generated organically by the development that's going on in those areas can really be beneficial without putting any more of a burden than necessary on the existing businesses and the existing people that are within those districts there. Thank you.
Thank you. Marston Lovell, question 5. What do you see as major opportunities and or challenges for our downtown?
First of all, I think the really major opportunity is always based in its people, in our people. In this case, it's Saco Main Street itself, and its executive director and its city staff resource, the executive director, Rob Biggs, and the city staff resource, Bill Mann. The tools that can be used to work the potential opportunities is to have serious projects that include the city's new TIF policy that actually has in it a grant process, so that impact fees, one of the most common fees I've heard from entrepreneurs as being anti-business, can actually be reduced through this TIF policy to promote development within the district and bring about new businesses that have limited resources to start with. The challenges will continue to be parking, traffic control, aging structures, especially within a historic preservation district, because there are limits to exactly what sort of work can be done. And of course, the human element, and that is the changing belief in infrastructures that we find occurring today and will be continuing on, particularly as we become more interconnected through the internet.
Thank you. Don Pylon, number 1. What are your views and thoughts regarding residential infill and commercial development in the downtown district?
Main Street has been the draw to the area. People that are moving into the Saco area have told me that your Main Street is a charming New England Main Street. They love our Main Street. I would look for a facade grant, go out and find a facade grant to improve some of the buildings on Main Street. As you move down Main Street from the railroad tracks, some of the buildings along Main Street need a little dressing up. So perhaps the economic development director could go out and find a facade grant to dress up some of the Main Street. Our Main Street is not that big. Our Main Street is literally from the railroad tracks, maybe up to Town Hall, and then we lose our retail businesses until you get up to maybe the Route 1 area. So I'm all for development, but I don't really want to lose our Main Street, New England taste of Main Street. As people start to move into the area, the demand to create these bistros and coffee shops and these new businesses that have come out of the Bridge 2025 report that we created when I was mayor are difficult to locate in these buildings. However, we do have an opportunity right now because the old Caldwell Bank building, or that office building that was Caldwell Banker, is empty. So now we have an opportunity to stick a new, could be a restaurant, it could be a library restaurant, or some other bistro that came out of this report in that building. But it needs a little dressing up, and now we have an opportunity to do that, and we can do that through perhaps a grant. The other thing that we need to look at is don't push it into the side streets, and don't put too much density on those side streets. It's only going to create more traffic, and that traffic is going to be pushed onto Main Street, and the traffic is, as we all know, a big problem on Main Street. So we don't want to create more traffic.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Peg. May I also speak to question 1?
No, I'm sorry. We need to keep in order of question. Round three, you'll have a chance to rebut. Everyone will get either 2 or 3 minutes at the end to fill in the gaps, if you will. Thank you. Marshall Archer, question 2. Saco has a significant asset in the Saco River. What are your ideas for leveraging this asset in the areas of public access, water-based business, and parks?
Thank you, Peg. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but for transparency, I'm also on the board of Saco Main Street. I did want to mention that before, but I got caught up with my resume. So to answer your question, there's a section of undeveloped waterfront land on Front Street with significant access to Saco River. In time, I'd like to see better use of this land for recreational activities such as kayaking, fishing, additional moorings, bike paths, etc. Front Street has site preference. As a Ward 1 councilor, it is important to me to understand the motivations of Saco citizens. While I have a vision that is inclusive, I want to hear from the citizens of Sacos. Do kayakers and anglers do they have the same vision? Do water paddlers agree with boaters? These are things that I want to know. When I look at what resources we have, we also share them. So for me, it's important to understand what the citizens want. As councilor, I will listen and understand the motions of the constituents to best develop my vision and use the underutilized asset of Saco. So as mentioned, Front Street. We also go into the island. Saco Island has the ability to also be a recreational area. I don't want to get too much into it. I'll maybe ask a question later, but I see it as a multi-use facility with moorings as well, so you can take your boat up to the facility. But I also, as Barbara mentioned, swimming. We have all this area of this Saco River. This is our river. It's called Saco. Let's use it to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Thank you. As luck would have it, Barbara would be having question 3, which she's not going to answer again. So we're going to skip ahead to question 4. Barbara Coleman, question 4. The City of Saco has an application in with the state for a downtown development district awaiting final approval. What is your familiarity and opinion on development districts, tax increment financing or TIFs, and BIDs, business investment districts?
I am very familiar with TIFs. I've actually been to 4 presentations, 3 done by the city, 1 done by a consultant a year ago in November here at the Chambers for the council. I provide copies of this report that was provided last year to numerous individuals that asked for it. TIFs are an important way to shelter increases in the city valuation. It gives an opportunity to, and it benefits taxpayers as well. It avoids, sorry, the lighting is not well up here. Don't have that light. TIFs are an opportunity to shelter the increases in city valuations. It avoids losses due to state and county fiscal formulas. And TIF funds cannot be utilized for anything other than what it is designated by the TIF grant or proposal that is approved by the state name. Any funds that are used currently are used, of course, from the general fund, which is your major checking account in the city. As people have said, TIF funds are restricted, and the one that currently is being waited upon is for the downtown district. That will be the 8th one that will be coming onto the books, and there will be 2, as far as I know, rolling off the books by the end of 2017. TIFs are limited to infrastructure, public safety, offset adverse environmental impacts when people propose or do developments. It helps to create a revolving fund. It helps with employment and training in the sense that if a municipality doesn't have a learning institution, then the person is able to then seek those funds to go and learn elsewhere. So if we had no school, we would be able to send one of our children to another school if we didn't have those available. As an individual running for council in Ward 3, if I'm elected, one of my major areas of coverage, and I understand this is about downtown district, but Ward 3 covers Route 1 on both sides of Saco from the turnpike all the way down to the Scarborough line. That is pretty business friendly and all of that. And I recognize that individuals, realize that the downtown is drawn from basically Thornton Academy to the mills, as it is at this point. My focus as a council would be to improve the economic and business development in that area as well. A number of individuals stay in motels and hotels in the industrial park and as well as Route 1. We need some additional businesses in that area to be established. There are a number of homes that are being built in that area, which would be a great opportunity for commercial activity, which then would allow for livable wages that individuals could be employed by companies up there. And so local citizens would be able to work within our own community.
Thank you. Oops, sorry. I'm sorry, 3 minutes went by quickly. William Doyle, question 5. What do you see as major opportunities and or challenges for our downtown?
Thank you for that question. Major opportunities for the downtown is Saco Island East, and also the revitalization of certain areas. One of the things that this council has done, and I supported, was the revitalization of the Notre Dame Church. Now, it hasn't started production, but it will start production here on Cutts Ave. That is a part of the downtown. That's part of the history and the fabric of this community. So major opportunities is revitalization like that. I do agree with Don with the facade grants and improving some of the Main Street awnings and some of that stuff that's downtown that makes our downtown so charming from other people. Some of the challenges I see to our downtown is challenges that we've faced in other projects, and that is the not in my backyard thought process. We want Saco to remain Saco. We have to be open to some sort of change and some sort of step forward and some different ideas. We have to build the identity of what we want our community to be. And when I say that, different communities all over the state have an identity, right? Lewiston Auburn has an identity as a sports venue, as some other, as a place where people want to go. They do have some eateries and stuff. Portland has an identity as your commercial street development, your restaurant magnet. So there's a lot of different entities. Saco has to find out what our identity is going to be and then move with that, progress forward. Bridge 2025 that came out was a perfect example of that. That's when the community got together and said, hey, this is what we want to achieve. This is what we want to have. We want to have more eateries in the downtown. We want to have more events, more entertainment in the downtown to keep people here, right? To keep people staying in this community rather than going across the river or up to Scarborough or up to South Portland to get something to eat. So we have to look at that, and we have to have a serious conversation of moving forward with Bridge 2025 and make that part of the comprehensive plan, which the comprehensive plan right now is being developed by the Comprehensive Plan Committee. So I think that's one of the major things that we have to look with. Establishing an identity that fits with Comprehensive Plan Bridge 2025 and moving forward with that identity. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Copeland, number 1. What are your views and thoughts regarding residential infill and commercial development in the downtown district?
Thank you for the question. I think traffic has to be addressed. If we want residential infill, which was discussed a lot when we talked about, when the council talked about the Cutts Avenue property, there wasn't parking, but the discussion was that the millennials don't have cars, don't want cars. They're going to use mass transit. They're going to take a trolley or a train or a bus, and they want to walk around in their community. So one of the things that we have to talk about is, getting the trolleys to go where the people are and get them to where they want to go. So there's routes and things to discuss. Bicycles, we need to be a little bit more bicycle friendly. Our Main Street is quite jammed with traffic a lot of times. We need to work with Maine Department of Transportation and also the train station itself, the Downeaster. If that train stays and blocks our Main Street for 10 minutes when nothing is happening, it's sitting there. We need to extend the platform so the train can move up so the traffic can flow. So that's a really big issue. And pedestrian safety, as I said before, we need more crosswalks that are illuminated and make people feel comfortable to move about downtown. And so I think that's if we have all that infrastructure in place, that supports residential infill and commercial development, stores, retail, restaurants, and things of that nature. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Berman, number 2. Saco has a significant asset in the Saco River. What are your ideas for leveraging this asset in the areas of public access, water-based business, and parks?
Yeah, thank you. The The Saco River is an amazing resource. I have so much to say about it. You've asked me to kind of focus on downtown, but I think that's hard. I think we need to consider the river in kind of three sections. The downtown section that comes through the mill, the more residential section, kind of downriver from the dam, and then the mouth, which is Camp Ellis. So I'll try to focus most of my comments on downtown for this forum, but as a Ward 4 guy, it's going to be hard not to mention some of those other regions. So when I think about the downtown urban river, I think about two things. One, I think about its recreational potential, and then I think about its view and the kind of cultural, environmental resources that it brings. In terms of recreation, I think it's simple. I went on 2 whitewater paddling trips this summer with my family. They're amazing. They're incredibly popular. It's an up-and-coming sport. And here we have an amazing whitewater resource right through downtown. Another common interest for people is kind of urban exploration and ruins, thinking about like Fort Williams Park. Here you combine both, right? We have this amazing whitewater resource where people see history, right? See kind of urban ruins and the mills, and we can combine them into some sort of recreational activity. I'd be the first to sign up. The second is that it's beautiful. It's gorgeous, and right now it's surrounded by largely empty buildings where nobody can see. And so we need to change that. We need to put people on the river, office buildings and residential areas, so people can look out on it. I think Saco Island East is a great example of that. The drawing that was done to the city and put in a newspaper shows a beautiful plan with walking paths, restaurants, hotels, right, housing, all really very necessary for our city. I'd like to see a little less parking on that island and a little more access for people, but parking is necessary too. As we come down, right, kind of away from the dam, right there we have people's backyards, and people want boats and fishing there, and we need to really increase access and make that simple, right? Find ways to facilitate people getting their moorings in and their boating. And finally, Camp Ellis, I think at the mouth, could be a huge economic driver, almost a second downtown. We need to find ways to bring UNE students there, right, to spend money and live in the housing. UNE is currently full to the gills. They can't house everybody, but we have rental properties going vacant in the winter, right? We have restaurants that need people. Right? Portland is gentrifying. The working waterfront, right, is driving people away because they can't afford rents anymore. But here we have Saco, right, with Camp Ellis and the riverfront looking to bring people in. We need to capitalize upon that and bring them here. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Boucher, number 3. The east side of Saco Island has recently changed ownership and is poised for development. As it is one of the gateways to Saco, what would be your vision for this unique parcel of land?
Leading into that question, I think that one of the big things that Saco lacks is a reason for people to come to Saco. We've heard people tell us as residents here that the downtown area and Main Street is beautiful and it has that quintessential New England charm that so many people like. But you really can't do anything. You can drive through, you can appreciate it, but beyond that, there really isn't much for you to stop, get out, and realistically spend money because, what's a downtown without people spending money and generating income and helping the community grow? So I think that using Saco Island East as a space to bring larger events, whether it be a more sophisticated amphitheater or some sort of concert venue or anything similar to that, where we drive people from other communities here to Saco, because getting the people here in downtown Saco is inevitably going to lead them to staying here in downtown Saco for a little bit longer and spending some of their money and enjoying what we enjoy on a daily basis. You look at other communities like Portland, they have the food scene, they have a music scene. You go down to Boston, you can get a whole plethora of that. I mean, we can take the train and get out of Saco. Why would we stay here in Saco? We don't have those amenities for us. So focusing on the east side of the island as being a way to bring people in and a way for us to stay here ourselves and enjoy the resources that we have in our own backyard would be the best use for that space.
Thank you. Ted Soroy, number 4. The City of Saco has an application in with the state for a downtown development district awaiting final approval. What is your familiarity and opinion on development districts, TIFs, or tax increment financing, and BIDs, business investment districts?
Thank you. I agree that like TIFs have done some good things for the city. I got into local politics back in 2014 when I decided to go for the school board when we had a major tax increase. We own our home there on Summer Street, and I've watched my taxes since I've lived there rise from $1,700 a year, and now we're getting close to $5,000. And when I saw that major tax increase, mill increase, back in 2014, I decided I got to get involved. This is getting ridiculous. And I thought that the problem was on the school side. Well, it wasn't. The Saco schools are one of the most efficient schools in the state. The problem is a revenue problem from what I can see, and that's why I'm running here. TIFs are great things, but just like you mentioned over here, he had a valid point. If we're too generous with them, if we're taking the tax revenue that should be coming from businesses and not allowing it to help offset the cost of our schools, offset the cost of our road system that goes, for miles and all the other things, then guess who has to pick up the slack? It has to be the small tax payer, the people who own modest little homes. They have to make up that slack. So there's a balancing act there, and we have to watch ourselves to not get very generous with these TIFs and to scrutinize every single one of them to make sure that we're not giving away the farm, so to speak. So that's my opinion on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Micah Smart, number 5. What do you see as major opportunities and/or challenges for our downtown?
3 specific points I'd like to make on that. Number 1, I think, and I'm a case in point here, Saco's inevitably going to see an influx of younger professionals, younger families coming into the community. And, I think there's a lot of opportunity there, but there has to be a balance of influx because there are existing residents here, there are longstanding residents here, and I think if we only focus what we're talking about on those newcomers like myself, I understand that there's going to be a lot of people in town who might be left behind, and I certainly don't want to see that. So we've been talking about a lot of development on Saco Island, and I might be jumping around with some of these questions, but as part of the residential development that I see going on there, I think it would be great to have some sort of dedicated space to, say, a 55-plus community or something like that, because it's not just going to be the young families that are coming in here who want to take advantage of some of this economic growth. Number 2, I agree that Saco needs to be a destination. I think Jason hit it right on the head there. I would like to focus on the Main Street part of downtown because I see people coming to Main Street, parking, going to somewhere that they came to go to, and then getting back in their car and leaving. And I think to effectively use Main Street, it needs to be a place where people can come and park and walk up and down, do some window shopping, stay and have lunch. And that's where you're really going to get effective use out of that beautiful downtown area. You drive down east in Maine and you see all those beautiful little communities along the coast there, and they have the same historic downtown that we have. But you see people just walking, plethora of people walking up and down the streets, looking in shops, going in shops, stopping and having lunch or dinner. I think it wouldn't take that much to get Saco to that point. And third, I think that bringing all of these pieces together that we've been talking about today, developing the river and accessibility to the river, developing Main Street and developing Saco Island, I think they need to be done simultaneously. Because if we're focusing our attention on only one of those pieces, or maybe even 2 of those 3 pieces, we're not going to be able to utilize all of those great resources to their potential. So I think that really looking at all three of those as pieces to the same puzzle and developing them simultaneously will get the best return. Thank you.
Thank you. Marston Lovell, number 1. What are your views and thoughts regarding residential infill and commercial development in the downtown district?
Thank you very much, Peg, for asking me that question. I'm very enthusiastic about downtown development, and residential infill is the igniter for this development. We can see from the significant progress of the last few decades, when the downtown was dominated by NKL Tanning and Nike, that we have progressed quite a bit. What has happened, and this has been associated with that residential infill. Internet shopping has devastated mall shopping. But at this point, we're at a point of renaissance, of rebirth for an in-town boutique-style businesses. That the downtown housing, as a foundation for this, is exemplified by beginning with the Gavin Rutullo TIF that created Saco Island Terrace, and that has brought in run-of-the-mill, Saco Deli, Minuteman Press. But this has been followed on most recently with the Chinburg development of Building 4, which is a successful, appears to be a very successful development, and also of the Bateman development of the warehouse on Gooch. That was quite an eyesore, and having that recovered as working family housing, not the middle class or young professional housing, but it brings in the fair housing nature that has always been a part of Saco and Saco's development in its downtown. So that we recognize that this residential development having been is critical. Our next stage is that commercial development that Micah has just referred to, where people are invited to visit our downtown. It gives us the challenge of effective parking, but that the downtown boutique shops, particularly if it were not just restaurant, but furnishings and appliances, by keeping Agrins here, and of course with Vic and Witt's wine selection, and also the there's another kind of downtown development that's skipping my mind that could be a good boutique development.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Don Pylon, number 2. Saco has a significant asset in the Saco River. What are your ideas for leveraging this asset in the areas of public access, water-based business, and parks?
In 2018, the Army Corps of Engineers will be dredging the river, which will only accelerate boat usage in the river. So this will create an opportunity for the city of Saco and Biddeford to capitalize on this opportunity. So what I foresee is with the project that's being proposed on Saco Island East, with the advent of a marina, I would see that they include a Riverwalk, the continuation of Riverwalk on that project, as well as the marina. Now they're proposing a marina, but I would also submit to you that the marina not only have slips for the occupants there, but they also have some public slips. As well as now you say leveraging the leveraging the river. I see an opportunity, as Mike Berman mentioned, of creating some whitewater rafting opportunities, competition, kayak racing, also boat tours. You could put a boat tour from going down from town out to Camp Ellis, and maybe out into around Biddeford Pool, and then coming back up. On this piece of land, the Saco Island East, my vision for that piece would be a national hotel and a restaurant, a Class A restaurant. I don't care if they want to put condos and boat slips as well, but I want this to be a destination island piece. So now that you have occupants there that are staying there, and they're using the boats, and they're using the boat to go out to see the river, beautiful in the fall. Can you imagine going down the river during the fall and seeing the leaves, and then going out to Biddeford Pool, and then coming back up? That's a destination, especially with the University of New England and the parents coming up on a parents' weekend. Now everyone's going to flock to this thing, and will only spur economic development, and more people will come. They'll use the restaurants. They'll go to the run-of-the-mill. There'll be more of a demand on Main Street to create more restaurants. It'll be a win-win for everyone.
Thank you very much. We're ready for our final question. After the last question, we'll have 3 minutes for each of you to either rebut a question, talk about your platform, or give us a little bit more information about yourselves. Marshall Archer, number 3. The east side of Saco Island has recently changed ownership and is poised for development. As it is one of the gateways to Saco, what would be your vision for this unique parcel of land?
Yes, Vic, this is a very good question. It's the only question where you get to see a vision. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you to a vision. Imagine it's a Thursday, it's summertime, and here I am with my wife and my daughter, who's 1.5 years old. We park at the Saco Transportation Center. We walk down the backside over near where the fish ladder is, and we follow that path all the way to the red light that's currently that separates the bridge between Saco and Biddeford. I cross over. There's a restaurant. So we get there about 5:15, 5:30. I eat. I enjoy the scenery. I enjoy the weather. I even eat outside, and I get to enjoy the Saco River. After that, I continue along the pathway. It's a bike path as well. And I end up at an atrium, a public space that is also allocated with the building of this facility, a development. It is Thursday night, so I'm actually at the music in the parking lot. However, it's been transitioned down to Saco Island. I enjoy that time. You'll see my daughter. She's very known to dance at public events. Rob Big knows. Some of the people in this venue know of this. This is what I vision for the island. I then continue, the night continues, it's time to bring Sadie home, my wife, and we walk up the rest of the path back up to the train station, where I drive back to One Waycott Way, out in Ward 1. That is my vision. It's something that it will drive me to come. We have a lot of people that enjoy the community. Here I am. We're down there, music parking lot. I say hi to Rob, I say hi to his wife, I'm saying hi to Bill, Barbara, and everyone else here that I see on a typical Thursday night. This is my vision. Have dinner, go enjoy some music, enjoy the river, maybe even end at night. Hopefully by then I might own a boat, and I'll have a mooring for myself. I go out there, enjoy wine with my wife, and go home. That's what I vision for the city of Saco and the island. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have time for additional information. You'll each have up to 3 minutes. Again, bear in mind this event is geared towards Saco downtown, so any information that you'd like to add, or if you feel that you want to answer a question that you didn't get a chance to answer, feel free to do so. Barbara Coleman.
Hi, I'd like to finish going on with question 1, which is the downtown and residential. One of my areas of concern is not just the Main Street It's our side streets off the main street where the housing units are. 30 years ago, Saco or more redid Pleasant Street, a number of those homes. They took the homes and made those apartment buildings. Pleasant Street became a beautiful looking street like some of the other side streets we have here in Saco. Over the course of the last 30 years, and that was done with HUD funding, over the course of the last 30 years, if you now look at that section of downtown, it is worn out, worn down, and all that. And that's because the individuals that originally owned the homes and the properties changed hands, no longer HUD developed, and the people managing it are not taking care of those properties. That affects people coming to the downtown as well. Because let's say they choose not to come through Elm Street, and they come, Main Street, they come through Elm Street and cut through these streets. We've seen people right there, right next to the old fire station, shooting up heroin and almost dying. So in reality, we not only have to take care of our Main Street, but we have to take care of the side streets that go with it as well. Because if you do not do that, it doesn't look appropriate to people as well. You've got to draw the whole force of the whole area at one time. You can't do one. The other thing is a lot of these buildings here are historical. To rehab them is expensive because they have to meet the Americans with Disabilities Act. That is not a cheap adventure. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? How are you going to meet it? A lot of the buildings are historical enough that they have the certificates that you cannot tear them down. So when you come to an empty lot, are we going to end up choosing to now build, instead of a 2 or 3 story building, we end up building a 10-story building because we want to make this a dense area, like the buildings that are going across the street. 80 units, 1 bedrooms, most of them, 44 parking spaces. Immediately across from City Hall, where we're going to be consolidating the Saco school system into this as well. We don't even have on certain days enough parking for the people coming to City Hall. So why would you be adding 80 more units? You have to think, you want to think long term, you got to think about the parking and the transportation and all that before you start the development phases of these projects. It is just a common sense approach to what you need to do. So I want to finish up on that statement with downtown.
Thank you very much. William Doyle.
I didn't get the opportunity to answer the 3 questions, so I'm going to try to answer the 3 questions in the 3 minutes. Maybe trying to do a minute per question, but one of the things I want to speak to is the Cuts Avenue project that Barbara just referenced. That Cuts Avenue project, remember back when it was Notre Dame Church? There were people there all the time. We didn't have a parking issue at that time. So putting units in there, that one will have 2 cars, right? We'll also have a 55-plus community in there, right? One of the phases is a 55-plus community. Not all of those folks are going to have cars. Not all of the folks, the millennial folks that live in a 1-bedroom, small apartment, efficiency studios, are going to have cars. So I disagree with the parking concern. With that, I'm going to move on. I guess I said too much. So, in response to question number 2, Saco has a significant asset in the Saco River, and there's nothing more true than that statement. And I'll tell you, now that the statute of limitations is up, if you know, and you live in a community like my entire life I have, with the exception of maybe a few years here and there, if you've ever done a bridge jump off of the bridge, off the railroad tracks, off Urban Street Park on the end, that's quite exhilarating. So that Urban Street Park is an area where we need to revitalize that park. That's right on the water. Yes, sometimes it gets flooded out when the river floods, but that's a perfect opportunity of where we can be launching kayaks, where we can be doing some different activities. Same thing with Pepperell Park up off of Pepperell Square. This is another area that needs revitalization. And I've talked to Executive Director Rob Hicks about this
Thank you so much. Lynn Copeland?
Thank you. I want to focus on the Saco River because I think that is our jewel. It's at the heart of our city. It's beautiful. We love to sit out on the patio on front of the mill and enjoy it. I think that we should expand that. I think the park that Bill was talking about where the cops can't see and the vegetation needs to come down, I think that's very true. I know they had issues with lighting and they put these big, beautiful $4,000 lights up and they were knocked over by people. So it needs to be cleared out a little bit so the cops can see in, and we can reclaim that as a great public space for us all. I don't think we can launch any kayaks from that area because of the dam and all the turbulent water below. But I think that there are plenty of other places, like Bill was talking about, that Irving Street Park. That is another gem. It's got a little dock there. I mean, talk about a vision. We can imagine that Marshall is out there with his little lady fishing off that dock, and his wife is ready to get in the kayak. I mean, it is just that beautiful. But it's at the end of a dead-end street. It's not improved, and the lighting is not there, and people don't feel comfortable going. So we need to make that effort to make these parks and build them up into something beautiful. There's also another spot when you go out of town, right before you get to the train station, there's another little parking area there. I don't see why we can't claim some of that space for benches and a place for people to sit and rest and just listen to the water rush by. That river is so much to us. And I think that ties in greatly to it being part of the economic boom. You want to talk about a destination? Let's come to Saco because it's really peaceful. The people are friendly. There's lots to do. And you can be outside and enjoy it. So in my 59 more seconds, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a therapeutic foster parent, and I love kids very much and deeply, and I think that we need to have a kid-friendly downtown. We need to have destinations for kids where they can hang out and not be at the grocery store with older kids and the influences there. I have a program that I'm working on getting the middle schoolers who are too old for aftercare and too young for jobs to connect with the senior citizens. So hopefully in October we'll have the senior citizens going to the middle school, creating relationships with those kids and taking it from there, whether it's photography class, gardening, playing cards, singing, or whatever. And I want to point out that I'm a great outdoor enthusiast. I kayak myself. I think we need more access for just hand boats and just casual places where people can just, rest and get out there and exercise. And I thought somebody came up with the great idea about having kayak races. And I know it was at the Main Street event, and it was very well received.
Thank you so much.
Please vote for me, Lynn Copeland, Ward 4.
Michael Berman, thank you.
Thank you. I've had so much fun here. It's been great. We've heard lots and lots of good ideas from all the candidates. But I don't think good ideas in isolation are enough to move Saco forward. I think for that, we're going to need a comprehensive vision. And I have a comprehensive vision for the city based on its strengths, based on our natural beauty, like the riverfront and the coast, based on our easy access to urban centers like Portland and Boston, based on our unique history, our culture, and our community. And in my vision, we're a family-friendly, middle-class town, maybe less expensive than something like Kennebunkport, but less raucous than something like Old Orchard Beach. And we'll build the infrastructure so that people who retire and aren't families anymore can still stay and be productive citizens. Now, in my vision, we're going to bring tourists into downtown. They're already here. They're here for the Fun Town, Splash Town, the Aquabog, and the Monkey Trunks, the beach, but they're not coming downtown. We'll bring them with trolleys, right? With bike rentals and bike shares, with increased pedestrian access. They'll come, they'll eat, they'll drink, they'll stay. We'll bring them here with comprehensive advertising and packages, making Saco the place to be. We'll have families and professionals that move here to work in those new commercial services, right? But also commuting to Portland and Boston via the Amtrak. And we have to do all of this, of course, while keeping our eye on making sure Saco is beautiful, and keeping its historic nature and its current culture. Now, I think we can have all of that. Right? It's going to take effort. It'll take vision. Right? But we have that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Alan Minthorn?
I get to talk.
You get to talk now.
You get 3 minutes.
We'll even give you
Condensing to 3 minutes.
4 minutes.
Give you 4 since you haven't been.
Okay, great. To go over some of the things that have been talked about by everyone, some things I wanted to kind of put in there that council has accomplished, if you will, in the last couple of years of all of us being here and trying to work from what a lot of folks felt was decades of no, no, no on everything by some counselors, and we've tried to move things forward. And I love talking with my family down in Florida, and they'll say, well, you know, what's the biggest challenge you had? And I go, well, we were working on getting a deed for the UU Church because they've never had one for the land under the church since 1824. And I'm going, wow, that can was really kicked down the road, you know? So we've had some major challenges of little things like that. Talking about the traffic issue here on Main Street. Right now, the traffic lights have all been upgraded or in the process of being upgraded from all the way up at Cascade area all the way out into Biddeford. And they're going to be computerized. They're actually being run by MDOT. So that should help with some of the traffic. Unfortunately, Hill Street in Biddeford and into Main Street was not included in the electronics. So hopefully we can get some electronics packages bid in the coming year to bring that online as well so we can synchronize the traffic in a much better pattern. One other thought, and I know all the town people are going to go crazy on me, but what if we made downtown a little more restricted to traffic, which would push the traffic over to US 1? If we did that, we may be able to widen the sidewalks, to give the restaurants a little more ability to spill out onto the street, if you will. We need to think a little further outside the box if we really want our downtown to develop. And case in point, take a drive south on US 1 and go through Kennebunk. They just did a really nice upgrade of their downtown area. New street lights, we've done that, you know, some other things. There's a lot they've done to make it even more quintessential New England, and I think there are things we can do that way, which I will piggyback into our current downtown development district, which hopefully will be approved this week, if not next. We do have built in there seed money for facade grants, as well as just renovation type grants for the downtown area. Now, the downtown development district that we applied for, not that we will get the whole area, is actually much larger than the old district. It basically goes from the river all the way up to 195. And it basically follows the railroad on the east and James Street over that way, due north. And then to the west, kind of behind Shaw's, that area that's the edge of my ward. But it goes all the way to the Kimball property and covers out toward Boom Road in that area. So it's a much larger area. So there's a lot of opportunity there to harbor some of the tax dollars as people do invest and to bring those dollars back in for infrastructure improvements and those kinds of things. One thing, and please, this is another one of those, I don't want you to take this example the wrong way. Business Investment District. I was fortunate to be invited to go up to the Build Maine conference the last 2 years. One of the gentlemen there was speaking about parking in downtown, which was quite relevant for here. Since a lot of people think we have a parking problem, we actually had one of our interns study it this summer, and most of the parking spaces are only filled about 1/4 to 1/2 of the time. So we really don't. But in areas they consider putting parking meters in place, you need to have that parking space filled 90+% of the time. One creative thing that happened out on the West Coast is the downtown put parking meters in, but they used all the money and funneled it right back into the downtown businesses.
10 seconds. 10 seconds. No, that was 4 minutes.
Oh, wow, okay. Anyway. It does. Oh, I like it better on council when we can that we are very focused on council that our programs are self-sustaining. And going on the theme of the parks and developing our parks, I think we could build some restroom facilities, which would be very helpful to have public restrooms in downtown. And with that, have some commercial spaces that could be rented out to help offset those revenues.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jason Boucher.
Clearly, traffic is a big issue. We all know it here in downtown Saco. Going around, gathering signatures to have my name placed on the ballot, one of the big things that I heard from people is traffic. And there were people that also complained about parking. We just heard a great example that, parking isn't actually an issue. We just don't have that front door parking access that a lot of people that live in downtown hope for. But one of the things that I really would like to try to focus on is alleviating some of the traffic issues. I know upgrading traffic lights is certainly a step in the right direction, but there are more things that we can do as far as maybe looking at closing certain streets down or redirecting traffic to one-way streets to try to maintain the flow of everything emptying out down onto Main Street in Saco. As an avid walker and biker in the downtown area, riding my bicycle proves to be a little hairy at times, especially during rush hour traffic, simply because there aren't appropriate bike lanes. And even walking on the sidewalk from the intersection of Beach Street and Main Street down up to Thornton Academy, if you're walking on the outer side of that sidewalk and having traffic come by you at 35, 40 miles an hour, it makes you feel a little bit uneasy. So I think that in looking to develop and create a sense of wanting to be in the downtown area, trying to make people feel comfortable being on foot is a very important part of that process. And before we really consider how much we look to increase the density, we really need to focus on how we increase or how we address foot traffic and vehicular traffic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ted Siroy.
Thank you. As the questions are going around, I was looking like at question 2 and hoping for question 2. Hoping. Well,
it's all yours.
A chance. A couple of weekends ago, I volunteered with the Saco salmon restoration people. We helped clean up the Saco River. I launched my boat at Diamond Park, and I was responsible for going all the way up to Skelton Dam and back. And I filled that 16-foot boat with a lot of garbage. What was heartbreaking about the whole incident, though, was Diamond Park. When you're told, when you're coming out, and you're not only were we picking stuff off the riverbank, but we're also the trail that goes from Diamond Park up to the train trestle. And when you're warned, watch out for the needles. Heroin users use that park because it's perfect. It has a path that is overgrown with brush, and it's a perfect place for them to wander off and do their things and come back. And the neighbors are quite upset about that. Why do we own this asset and we just leave it the way it is? That is just a terrible waste of one of our greatest assets we have right now, and that's Diamond Park. All we have to do is go down there and clean up the riverbank, cut down trees. I'll volunteer me and my chainsaw to go down there and help out with that. We own a lot of beautiful places. The city owns a lot of beautiful places, and yet we just don't take advantage of it. I'm sure I'm going to irritate a lot of people, but I just kind of wonder, we spent $1.4 million on a bridge, Stackpole Bridge. To this day, I still don't know where it is. I promised I would go out and ride around and see where it is, but I don't know where that is. How many children would have taken advantage of Diamond Park if it was a swimming place? If it was basically all the trees from the path down to the riverbank was completely cleared out and we brought in truckloads of sand. We're dredging, I hear. Hey, I know where we can put that sand. Let's go put it back where it came from, up the river. Let's get these assets that we have available to us, let's get them available to the people who need it, especially for the kids, because that's a very kid-intensive area right there. They would love a swimming place. Thank you.
Thank you. Micah Smart.
I don't know if I've seen everybody in the back, so I think I'm going to stand up for a second. I'm going to come right out and say it. I'm not from Saco. I'm sorry. It's not my fault. I was born in Fort Kent, way up north. That's where my family's from. And I decided to move to Saco because it's so beautiful and it has so many things to offer people like myself, a young professional, starting his career, starting a family, and looking for somewhere to stay long-term and grow with the city. And that's exactly what I see that this city can do. There are amazing things already here, and hopefully I can be a part of making them even better. Parking has been a pretty big topic today. It was brought to our attention that parking maybe not be that big of an issue, but I think the reason there's that perception is because there's so many cars down there. Apparently they're not parking, which I see as a problem. If people are just driving around downtown Saco and Main Street and not stopping, that is a problem. And we need to figure out how we can change that. I think if we can get people to take up those spots a little bit more often, stick around, walk around, spend some money in our downtown, I think that would be a great thing for this town. It's unfortunate that the wind turbine is coming down. I think investing in renewable energy sources is a great thing for the present and the future. I think that it would be a great idea to look into alternatives. I know that there's a potential to look into a different turbine. We do have the river, potentially some sort of hydroelectric projects would be something to look into. And finally, I think one way of dealing with the traffic down on Main Street is a great idea would be to divert some of that traffic, and diverting it up to Route 1, which is certainly could handle it, it seems like to me, would be a good idea. Maybe even making it one way. If we can find a way to get more pedestrian traffic on Main Street, I think that's only going to help the businesses, which will help the city itself. We have a great farmers market that's tucked away in the corner of a parking lot, and if you didn't know it was there, you'd miss it. Why don't we bring that to Main Street and get people in the summer walking around, getting good, healthy food, and stopping in some of the shops while they're there. I would like to be here for the long run and do everything that I possibly can to help make this city even better, and it's pretty great already, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Marston Lovell?
Thank you. I think I'll take advantage of standing up, just to stand up. And and I want to thank you all for coming. And I want to, first of all, say that these 5 questions were quite a didactic for me, because they really instructed me quite a bit on how strong Saco Main Street has gotten since Betty has taken over as president, since Rob Biggs has taken over as the executive director, and since Bill Mann has taken over as the economic development director, working with Saco Main Street. My vision for the city is that people work together and come up with many and successive visions. After 3 decades in business computing, I can tell you I'm used to having everything change every 6 months, but we need to have planning, be able to be that versatile, because the internet is now part of our lives. And if we aren't looking at what we have for a plan, using the vision of many people, we're going to stagnate, and that will hurt us. As to parking, I don't know of any millennials who don't have a car, willingly at least, and some of them have 2 cars. So when we talk about no parking problem, if we're renting or selling condominiums to millennials, then we're ignoring a problem that will become a burgeoning problem. And that's also true for people over 55. they don't give up their cars until their physician won't certify them to be safe on the road. So recognize parking and traffic are problems, and that a downtown development district may well be able to find funds to promote proper traffic control and effective municipal parking to boost the boutique shops that I talk about. And I forgot which boutique shop. Mike Merrick designed this tie. He's an entrepreneur who created Saco Bay Classics, selling men's and women's clothing, very successful business. He shut it down and moved to Paris, Maine, and is enjoying life. We need not only a furniture designer and crafter in the Saco downtown, but we can use another Mike Merrick in the downtown to add to places like Agron's and Vic and Wicks that have been with us for quite a while.
Thank you very much.
My time's up. One quick question. Is there another closing statements, or is this
No, this is it. We're going to have questions from the public shortly. Yes. Thank you. Don Pylon?
I have to stand up, I guess. I can rest? Okay. I was the guest speaker today for the Biddeford Saco Rotary Club, and obviously one of the questions that came up, Councilor Minthorn, was traffic. So we spoke about the traffic, and I said, well, the problem is that Saco is so popular, and as we continue to make it popular, Rob, we're going to have more cars in the city with infill, and with more people wanting to be a resident of Saco. Now, that's just in the off-season. In the in-season, with the people wanting to come here, we're also going to have a larger influx of people with cars. So I suggested, and I had suggested this when I was mayor, I suggested as people are coming south on Route 1 into Saco, back up around Thornton Academy, around King Street, as you're coming into town, like they did this in Westbrook. As you're coming into town, rather than go straight onto Main Street, put a sign that says Main Street bypass, and send people that don't want to come down Main Street, they can go Route 1 around the city and continue on. Because a lot of people that are not familiar with this area just stay in line, and they just go down Main Street and they get backed up. And then the other problem that people think it's the traffic light that backs up traffic. That's not necessarily true. It's the train. So once a train pulls in, and the train can't pull all the way up, so the gate comes down, and they let off their people, and then it continues on. Now, I know that the council has been dealing with Pan Am and Amtrak about extending the platform so that the train could pull up farther, and then the gate would stay up. That's what needs to happen. You've got to extend that platform so the train can pull up forward and the gate would come up. But apparently that hasn't happened yet. And I don't know if the rub is with Pan Am or if it's with Amtrak. But those conversations need to continue so that you can get that train to pull up. Now when the train comes down from Boston, it's got to, I don't know, does the gate stay up when it comes in? Does anyone know? No?
A little bit, yeah.
But the issue is that that Amtrak, that gate has to be corrected because it's stopping traffic. It was stopped all the way up to the Saco Motel today. So you have to put a bypass sign up so that people are not sitting in traffic. Lastly, real quick, put a sign with an electronic flashing light so that if the train is in the station, people will take the bypass road and we can do this electronically, that the train is in the station, take the bypass road, go to North Street, and they can get on 95. There's no 95 sign, Interstate 95 sign at North Street, and take a right on North Street and let them go.
Thank you.
That's the issue.
Right.
Okay? I would take care of that.
Thank you.
Sorry it takes so long.
No worries. Marshall Archer, last but not least.
Yes. So while I was listening, but I was deciding, do I answer the third question, or do I identify you why I want to run? What would put someone in a position to want to be a counselor? You get a lot of you get a lot of choices to solve problems, but you take a lot of heat. Just yesterday, my mother had I'm not going to say her age, but she had a birthday. And I just found out, I knew I had been connected to this community for a long time, but I did not know that in the Dyer Library there's a record that puts us all the way back to Pepperborough. That's when I didn't realize that I have 300 plus, 400? Not quite 400 years. It's in my blood. I love Saco. After the Marine Corps, I came back. I moved into Portland real quick just to establish my footing, and then as soon as I could, me and my wife bought a house. 25. I came here as quick as possible. If you look at my website, it's electmarshallarcher.com, you will find that I've been using a slogan that I created about a couple weeks ago called Community Through Collaboration. And on the website, you'll actually find out under question and answers what that means to me. I believe in a time when I found out about the history and things like that, I started to realize that politics is not about just your vision. It's a collaboration of vision. And it's very important that no matter who is elected council, that we get along professionally. We don't have to get along personally, but professionally. There needs to be a certain amount of respect. We all have good ideas. When I looked at our Constitution, we were farmers, lawyers, bankers, veterans, etc. And we created a pretty good document that's still around. That is my vision. That is who I am. As a Marine, I have broad shoulders, so feel free to send all your complaints to me. I'll listen, and I'll do my best to come to a solution. I won't always. I'm not going to promise that. I'm not always going to have a solution that you want, but at least I'll be up forth with you. I know this was very focused on downtown, but this is how I operate. It's going to be with if I'm elected, it's going to be with all the policies, whether it's school-based, whether it's anything. It could be many things. It could be it could be down at with the Army Corps of Engineers dealing with the pier and all that good stuff. But if I am elected, I can tell you this, that I would be representing Ward 1. However, I represent all people from Saco, my decisions. So if elected, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get someone who looks at the whole thing. As mentioned, I'm working on my doctoral in social work, and it's in administrative practice. I look at things analytically and logically. Sometimes investments need to be made that cost taxpayers money, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're a waste. This is the things that I'll be looking at. I'll be looking at whether or not our money is being spent in a fiscally responsible manner. My time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're at the point to take public questions. We have an opportunity to take a break before we take questions. Could we get a show of hands as to how many people have questions, and we'll decide whether to plod on or cut? You have a question? Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and take a couple of questions. Remember, the questions have to do with downtown Saco in general and not specific to my building. Introduce yourself and your question,
And who
please.
you want to answer the question.
Would you go to the microphone, please?
Oh, sure. Well, you can kind of all answer this one. I live downtown.
I think you need to pick one person, please, to answer the question.
Let's see.
Would that be appropriate?
How about Micah? I live downtown, and I walk downtown a lot because,
Where you live?
Lynn Maraville, I live on School Street, and I can see Main Street from my house. Actually, I shouldn't be able to see Main Street from my house because there's no buffer zone that was required by law, but, that's part of where I'm going to. I don't like going downtown, eating downtown, or walking downtown And I'll tell you why. Because it's loud. So if I were going to sit with a friend, I have to yell like this. And you can hear me without that microphone, okay? Because when I sit next to somebody trying to have a cup of coffee, it's not pleasant. The other thing that is very unpleasant is that I can't breathe. It is traffic, and we don't have a parking problem. When I leave town, let's say I want to stop at the bank or stop somewhere as I'm leaving, I've never had a parking problem, never. And I've lived downtown now since 1996. So, anyway.
What's your question?
My question is, would you please enforce the buffer zone shrubbery? Because we need to have sound, softening, and hard surfaces don't do that. Trees do that, and they have to be evergreen. Shrubbery. Look at Fernleaf Bakery. What they have around their stuff stops noise, but it also makes oxygen. We have so many cars, I can't breathe. Can we have shrubbery where it's supposed to be?
Thanks for the question, Lynn. I think that we talked a little bit about the BIDs earlier, the business investment districts, and I think this would be one of those opportunities where it would make a lot of sense. Have some of the businesses that are already in downtown pitch in and invest in something that would bring more to their own businesses and in the community itself to make not only what you're saying, the buffer zone, and to help some of the community around downtown, but also to make everything more beautiful. I don't think anybody's going to sit here and argue that more trees, more foliage is a bad thing. I think it's a fantastic idea. And I think that's one of the ways that we can effectively use a BID in order to have a plan, attack it uniformly, and have some of the businesses help themselves by increasing some of that foliage around that downtown area.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Biggs, and I actually have a question for you, Mr. Lovell. Mr. Pylon had a chance to tell us his vision for Saco Island East, and I would love to hear your vision for Saco Island East as well.
Excuse me, was that Sue?
Yes.
Hi, Sue. All right, thank you very much. I've spoken with Mr. and Mrs. Saltner. I've seen their plans. They seem to be very, very well thought out. They appear, from looking at those plans, as if they really talked to members of the community about community spaces. I believe that they've come up with a very equitable plan. For example, the Riverwalk comes down on Saco Island West to Main Street and the bridge. Their plan is actually to run it under the bridge and onto their property and then around and then to a bridge to the Front Street walk, because there is another walk that comes from a park at Front Street further down the Saco River. I think that's very thoughtful. They've talked about the marina and how they make that more open and adding marine-oriented businesses. So in Camp Ellis, for example, you can rent a canoe or a kayak. Well, that's part of their plan, is to encourage business along that area. Another part of the plan that seems very, very logical for the space that they have is a very nice fine dining restaurant. And then a third area or item that they have is for a boutique hotel, because that fits much better than the commercial chain does. And they've actually spoken with the fellow that developed the Press Hotel, which is the former Portland Press Herald or Gannett Publishing building. And having had dinner in a restaurant that's in that hotel, I believe that they would probably be able to merge a very nice restaurant in with that hotel development. So I think that one of the things that promotes some of the most creative thinking is when you have your own money on the line. And he and his wife stand to really suffer significantly if he does not have a really successful plan and promote it with a vision. And I don't know if he has been working with Saco Main Street, and that's how he came up with some of his community-oriented aspects, but he's really come up with, I think, some nice ones, and I would expect that as it goes along, Saco Main Street and Mr. and Mrs. Saltner will become much closer in their planning. Thank you very much for that question, Sue.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, this is to everyone. And
Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Kelly Archer. Familiar name. I'm his mother. And I'm the one with the birthday yesterday. 61. Anyway, I just want to make a comment to everyone. My family, we are so very, very proud to be a descendant of the founders of Pepperell Borough and Saco. I come from Aquila Chase, Thomas Chase family. Amos Chase House is still here, right on Ferry Road. I was with my great-grandmother for 25 years before she passed away, so to have 5 generations and have her share so much knowledge of Saco here is unbelievable. The one thing, I just became chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, which deals with downtown Saco, which is why you're here. Downtown Saco and the Historic Preservation Commission goes from the train tracks over to Thornton Academy, a nice little arm over to the train tracks of North Street, and then over to Fairfield School and the Pepperell Park area, and a couple little side streets. 206 pieces of property that are historic. Everyone has mentioned history, historical, destination place. One thing that I would love to hear people start to talk about is Saco has all 4 preservation designations, and you don't see that. I want it marketed, I want it promoted, and since I became chair on his birthday of July 31st of this year, because Johanna Hoffman, who has been with us for 11 years, and Mark is the one that got me into the historic preservation, which I absolutely love. The 4 preservation things that we are is a CLG. We're one of 10 in the state of Maine, certified local government. We are a historic district, 1998. CLG is 1991. 2007, we're Preservation America, Preserve America, all based in the National Trust, the National Parks, the Secretary of Interior, and we are also a Saco Main Street, which is getting very robust and vibrant. We're all for preservations. We need to talk about that. There are only 2 towns in the whole state of Maine, and it's Gardner and Saco, that are all for preserving our downtown, our historic districts, and why people want to come here. I would love to hear more of that prior to November. Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question? Wow. Apparently you guys did a great job. Oh, we have a question.
I'm sorry I arrived late. I had a family issue I had to take care of. So I apologize. What's that? Yes, I am. I'm Stan Marsden. I live on Cleveland Street. I've been here for a little over 20 years, and a large number of the people here at this table I know personally and have worked with you on various other sundry things. I also found a long time ago I don't need a microphone. And I would apologize for that part because I have my souvenir from Vietnam is that I'm hard of hearing. So if I ask you to repeat something, it's not you, it's me. The issue that I'm coming here with as a question to all of you. I would like to hear all of you address that
If you
issue.
could pick one person, please.
Okay, I'll pick on the mayor, okay? But I am
Which one?
expecting...
Which one?
I
Which
can't
candidate?
pick on the mayor either. Okay.
Which candidate? Which mayor?
One, okay, I'll come to that in a moment. Okay, and I want you all to listen because I'm expecting to hear some kinds of responses. As long as I have lived in this community, our property taxes have gone up. I looked at my tax bill 20 years ago when I arrived here, and I've lived in the same place the whole time I've been here. And my taxes have more than doubled. And I'm not down on the beach. I'm not in the middle of some brand new economic development program. I'm just living in an average neighborhood in Saco. When I look at that, it's an obvious question. What am I getting for this increased outlay from my pocket into our community? I'm assuming it's an investment of some kind. So the question that I'm raising is, all right, what is it that we are not doing that has to be done to make our community more economically sustainable? There's an issue, from my perspective, on the table that's not being addressed.
Who are you asking the question to?
So my question is, what is it that we have to do so that my tax bill doesn't double every 7 years? And I'm going to address it to Dawn.
I don't think it's on.
Stan, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And I'm going to stand because I...
Okay. All right. One of the things that we need to do to reduce the homeowners' property taxes is to create a better commercial base. We need to get the business parks full. So the industrial park needs to get occupied, and we need to get that Millbrook business park that was built several years ago occupied. We just can't, cut a road in off of Route 1 and then chop up some lots and then wait for people to come and say, okay, I'll take a lot in there. We have to create better infrastructure in those parks to be competitive with Biddeford, Scarborough, and Portland. How do you do that? Well, you have to put natural gas in there, for one, and then you have to put fiber in there, for two. And then you have to go out and market it. So when they built that Millbrook Park, who was marketing it? The economic development director, plus his full-time job, who was not a real estate broker. So when I became mayor, I asked, who's marketing this thing? And he said, I was. And I said, that's not the right course of action. You need to turn this over to a commercial real estate broker and let them sell it. They're in the network. Let them sell it. And furthermore, you got to put natural gas in there. And second of all, you need to put fiber in there, because you're not even in the hunt or in the rest of the pack with Biddeford, who's got the business parks all full up with gas, fiber, and everything it takes to put people in that park. The same thing in the industrial park. Make sure you get natural gas in there. When I became mayor, I cut a deal with Unitil. Unitil has got natural gas all in that park, and now they're going to cut across Route 1 and put natural gas in there. You got to create a stronger commercial base to take the burden off of the homeowners. That's how we're going to get it done.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up? That's a question to you.
question? You're asking us a question?
No, it's a follow-on to what's been brought up.
One more.
To still address the Dawn, so I'm assuming that's your rule, and then I'll allow.
You can ask whoever you want.
I ask whoever I want.
Yes, of course.
Well, I'm still going to address it to Dawn to keep continuity here. If I'm following what you're saying, is that we aren't doing a lot of the things that we should be doing in order to be able to do them, to hold taxes steady, let's put it that way. And now I want to get your comment on this to make sure I'm following this, that if we do what you're bringing up, that we would be able to still provide the services that we currently receive without having to be constantly raising our taxes, at least at the rate that we're doing now.
You'd be acquiring new businesses that are coming into the area with more people, more employees now coming in, right? These people are coming in, they're actually going to be buying houses. Some of these people they'll maybe live in Scarborough or some other town, but now some of these companies that are coming in will be buying houses here. They'll be adding to the tax base, ancillary personal homeowners taxes. But these businesses are coming in. You're going to get property taxes on their buildings. You're going to get personal property taxes on their equipment that you didn't have before. So that's going to add to the tax base. So you're going to actually shift the burden, or some of the burden is going to come off the homeowners, and it's going to be shifted over to the commercial base. It's building your commercial base to take the burden off of the homeowners. We're getting there. We're starting to see some activity, more activity in these commercial parks than we did before.
Thank you very much.
And frankly, I believe it's because we've put some muscle in those industrial parks with natural gas.
Thank you very much. We have one more question.
Hello. Hi, my name is Joe Gunn. I'm at 705 Portland Road. I have a question for my counselor, Counselor Doyle, because I live in Ward 3. I was curious about your vision for Saco Island East in terms of development such. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. My vision for Saco Island East is similar to what has already been said here tonight. However, I look at it a little bit differently with Saco Island East, and I don't want to predispose myself if anything does come to council, but my vision is this. If you've ever been up to Bar Harbor, go to the Bar Harbor Inn. That place is magnificent, right on the water, has some marinas attached to it, and their downtown, which is a stone's throw from the Bar Harbor Inn, is right there. This is what we should be doing with Saco Island East, making a river walk that goes around the island, but also putting in a hotel like the Bar Harbor Inn that will be a wedding venue, okay? That's a wedding venue, and it's booked up years in advance. That's a destination, right? That's a destination that draws people from all over the place. There's a church out in Kennebunkport that overlooks the water, right? It's right on the water. 3 years it's booked out to get a wedding venue there. If there's a hotel like the Bar Harbor Inn that goes in, that puts in conference centers, that has wedding venues every weekend, that's a destination. That'll bring people here for 8 months out of the year, right? That's bringing money into this community. The other piece of that Saco Island is the waterfront, right? I agree with Don. We need to do more water venue activities. Having a marina there and having a boat tour that goes up. That's a great idea. A water trolley, to take a water trolley down to Kennebunk Port, down to that area, to maybe have lunch or dinner down there and then come back. But it comes out of Saco. Right? These are great things we can do. One of the other things that was touched upon is parking and traffic. There's a railroad track that connects South Street in Biddeford, and I believe it's North Street of the Boomer. We should put in infrastructure there. We should put a road in there that'll alleviate some of that traffic from the downtown. That'll be another offset for people to take over to Biddeford and to get around. That'll work with the bypass that Don talked about. But getting back to Saco Island East, we need to make something that's destination. If we put residential housing in there in the form of condominiums, and it looks like something from a Grand Victorian down at Old Orchard Beach, that's fine. But if that's the case, if that's what we're going to do, we then have to change our ordinance away from Airbnb, because we don't want those condos to become an Airbnb and compete directly with any kind of boutique hotel that goes in there. Because the hotel has to be the draw. The conference center has to be the draw. Some of those industrial parks, 4 units in the Millbrook Plaza have been sold off, 3 or 4, excuse me, and then the industrial park itself is almost full. And I'm a proponent of the bond question number 3, which will put sewer, and at the same time you open up the sewer line from Saco all the way to Scarborough, you can then put in natural gas. Giving those folks infrastructure will bring economic development to this city on the Route 1 corridor.
Thank you very much.
Well, with no more questions, I want to thank everybody for coming. I'd like to thank the candidates, certainly for their time. Wish them all luck in the future here as you go forward in your campaigns and the elections. But thank you very much for coming, folks, and I appreciate your time.